Thank you for coming. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and thank you for coming in person. We had made a decision not to go online. Unfortunately, it was miscommunicated with the presenter. It just happened, so he is actually going to be presenting online, and we would have been recording it anyway. However, it's a very time. It's a real pain to do this. It's been a pain for 2.5 years, and so we're really welcoming doing it in person. Our board meetings are now in person, so I'm thankful that you come down on a beautiful evening. I'd like to acknowledge the ancestral, sorry, I have to be close to this, traditional and unceded Aboriginal territories of the Coast Salish people, and in particular the Masonic and the Wagon, on whose territory we live, work, and play. My name is Joanne Fox. I'm the chair of the CALIC. And with me are Owen Seifert, Don Monsour, and Ashley Fernandez, who are also on the CALIC. And we have quite a few people in the room, and we hope that everybody is aware of the development tracker process, where you can see all the plans online. City of Victoria, for 30 days, you are able to comment. Those comments all come back to us and the applicant and the city. And you can also at any time get the information of the applicant on the development tracker. You can email them, you can call them up and talk to them. The engagement with people who are applying to build things in Fairfield Gonzales. The idea is that we want people to talk to each other and share ideas and concerns. So, sorry, Don, I have my back to you. Anyway, the role of the CALIC is to help the community engage with each other. We don't make decisions. We don't make recommendations. We do have a meeting prior to this meeting, which is called the preliminary meeting, and it's an opportunity for the applicant to present their ideas, often the plans, usually their preliminary plans, and we make suggestions if they haven't thought of certain things, but at no point are we in a position to make any decisions at all. That's the city, and we work closely with the planning department, one person's planner, and that's really it. We also respond to emails from members of the community, and when we get applications that are of concern, we try to alleviate fears and get people talking to discuss what's going on. We would like this to be a respectful meeting. The presenter is, can you hear me okay, Keith?
Yes.
Okay. So we will give the presenter 15 minutes to make their presentation. And after that, the floor will be open for questions. We ask to keep your questions to 2 minutes. You can ask subsequent questions after other people have asked questions. As I said, we do like you to be respectful. At the end, yep.
I was going to say, one of the ways that we're trying to balance the online and the in-person, versus of this, trying to still make it accessible to people online, so we are going to record the meeting. So that will be available online as well.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, that is. So, yes.
Excuse me, I couldn't catch where you were from.
The Community Association Land Use Committee.
Oh, okay.
So we are the committee.
Sorry, I just couldn't catch.
Yeah, sorry. I'm the chair, and we have 2 members who aren't here. We're always looking for new members. So we have an AGM coming up, and we do welcome people from the community of all ages, backgrounds, renters, owners, you name it. Yes, so the meeting will be, there's a formal report that we pulled together that has the facts discussed in the meeting, and that goes to the city with any emails that have come in that were not CC'd to the mayor and council, or were not, most of them are. And then we have been recording these meetings, and so they are archived on the Community Association Land Use Committee website. So if there's something, if you missed the one for the Fairfield application, you can go back and watch that. I was very tired during that, so you see a very tired chair. So it's not my greatest performance. So we will give Keith 15 minutes. And Keith, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate accommodating myself and Michael on the Zoom this time. I understand implications of that, and I thank you for that. I believe Stephanie will start off with a few comments before myself. So, Steph?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you to all of
Excuse
you.
me, sir. You need you to sort of stand by that mic. Yeah.
Thank you. So, okay, I'm informal, sit down. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's here. I know almost everybody, except one face in the back, I don't know. And I just wanted to sort of give you a little bit of background of where Daryl and I, we've been talking about doing this since we moved in 2006, 2007. And so this is a culmination of almost 15 years of chit chat about what we need personally, but also kind of what we saw the community is needing. And there has, the city has moved towards some more of this, and it's coincidental as opposed to, or serendipitous from our perspective. And so we've often talked about how Daryl is part of the sandwich generation. Lots of you are part of the sandwich, or part of that sandwich generation, and that's kind of what we are. And that in Fairfield, there's not much accessibility, right? There's lots of condos going up. There are lots of single family dwellings, but most of them, any suite you have to set down, any house you have to set up or down to. And when all of the middle housing stuff did come in, it sort of sparked some ideas around that. These were things we've been talking about for 10 years, or 15 years, pardon me. So it also came on the heels of some issues that were going on with the house. So it was sort of like, we do this, or we start talking about this as well. The building's got some issues. And so we brought Keith in, and Keith is our designer and project manager, and he's gonna run us through this presentation. But I'll be here to answer questions if I can. Keith, over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me for 2 seconds here. Let me. I presume we can see that?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you so much. All right, so Hawthorne Row project that is named after what Steph and Daryl thought would be a good name for this project. Located at 1171, 1173 Main Street. In beginning this meeting, I'd like to acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory the city of Victoria stands, and the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and Wasanic peoples, whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. Basically, I'm just going to go through a few of the slides here. This is showing Cambridge Street. This is the site survey that was done with a Google map overlay. May Street to the north, Cambridge to the west. As I'm sure a lot of you know the site, this is the existing duplex, looking from different angles, from the intersection down May Street, looking down Cambridge, so on and so forth. And this is what we are proposing. So this has been rendered up from our drawings, indicating a three-story, 4-unit complex to the northeast, and a duplex 2-story or 3-story, once again, unit on the corner of May and Cambridge. I'll get into the architecture of it more, but this just gives you an idea of what the project will look like hopefully at the end of the day. The development vision that we had on this was to fulfill the need for new and adequately sized family-oriented housing. As you know, the site is close to park, school, and a developing commercial district on Cook Street. The project will be of high quality, thoughtful, and well-designed housing with sustainability and with architectural character. The contextual response is the proposed 3-story form allows for medium density development. All units will be able to provide full accessibility if required by occupants. Existing single-family homes in the neighborhood are between 2 and 3 stories. So what we felt is that this is in keeping with the neighborhood. Massing on the property has been broken down into a 4-unit and a 2-unit building rather than 6 units straight across. Site is flat, so there will be very minimal need for any large retaining walls. And parking is directly off of Main Cambridge streets. A previous proposal that we did and presented at the preliminary CALC meeting in December, we had a driveway right off of Cambridge Street, and it really did not provide the adequate rear yard for families to enjoy, and it did provide a large, hard landscaped area in the back, which was not really friendly, especially to the neighbors to the south. So we've changed it so that parking is directly off of May and Cambridge Streets. Architecture characters having Victorian roots, sustainable and durable materials will be used, and sustainable approach is required, and envelope performance are important criteria for the project. Based on the City of Victoria design guidelines, you can see that the project is actually really almost replicating some of the architecture that's shown in their design guidelines. Orientation to the streets, overlooking the public streets as well, because we have the balconies on the duplex side facing Cambridge, facing May Street. And and that was part of the discussion that was back in December as well, where some of the members had mentioned that it was nice to have, it would be nice to have people that were overlooking the street, and as opposed to being private, more of a community interaction with folks walking down the street. And that's what we tried to do with the duplex in the corner. The future land use of the Fairfield neighborhood plan shows this as a traditional residential, and it's generally it's located if we look at, sorry for the, but it's in this area here, that lot right there, and it's bordering the next type of development, which is the I'm sorry, it's representing the next level up as far as development, more density. So under the traditional residential, under the uses, it states residential, small scale commercial may be considered on a case by case basis, which we're not, there's obviously no commercial in this one. Density up to approximately 1.14 space ratio, which this is 1.02. And under the guided policies of Chapter 8. Single building types, single detached dwellings, house conversions and duplexes, generally ground-oriented residential buildings, including houseplexes and townhouses. Accessory suites and attached dwellings, which we don't have accessory suites and detached dwellings, but we are offering in the design for rental units. Site plan has the buildings as previously mentioned, sorry, 4 units facing May Street, these 2 facing Cambridge. Now it's very interesting that on this property, May Street, you would think would be the frontage, being the addresses 1171, 1173 May Street. But actually the Cambridge Street is the wider of the right-of-ways, and hence Cambridge Street is the front yard. So all the setbacks are based off of Cambridge being the front yard. This red square here, red rectangle, represents the setbacks of the zone that is actually permitted on the property currently. So as you can see, our front face of our building is in line with pretty well where the setback could be under the R1B zone. It's an R124 zone, but everything falls back to the R1B zone on this piece of property. The front yard, we have a relaxation here. And actually in the exterior lot line, which is considered on May Street, we have the deck that expands into that area. But like I said, that was built as part of a communication or people could talk to people walking down the sidewalk and have some interaction. The rear setback, the red line, once again, is what the R1B zone would provide. And you can see where our deck is, and the stairs encroach into that area a minimal amount. The one that is a little bit of a larger variance is the rear yard, which is, like I say, it's very strange when you look at it. It's not the rear yard, but it's you would think it would be a side yard. But in this case, it's the rear yard, and that's where a major part of our variance is to accommodate basically the 2 extra units. Quickly, just looking at the floor plans, proposed ground floor plan, they're all pretty well the same. We've provided bicycle storage in each one of the units. These two on the end will have bicycle storage from the outside and bicycle storage on the inside for these two middle units. The two in the duplex, so these plans are oriented as per the site plan. So the duplex, once again, laid out just as a 180-degree reverse of 180-degree turn of the fourplex. Now, the ground floor, we've allowed some options for rental. So there's a secondary suite if purchasers would prefer to have a secondary suite on the ground floor. So these are just options to the ground floor plans that we could provide. Main floor plan, which is actually one level up, is your main living area. We have our living area overlooking May Street and living area overlooking Cambridge. Kitchens centralized with a dining, a small powder room, and a deck right off the rear for occupants, residents to use and to access the rear yard. Upper floor contains 2 bedrooms in all units. So we've got a master primary bedroom and a number 2 bedroom. Laundry upstairs with 1 large shared bathroom. The elevations, which the rendering probably shows a lot more than this, but using a lot of cementitious shakes and siding, trying to replicate a Victorian look with the pitched roofs, the high pitched roofs, and some nice colors. We got some metal roofing that's over the bay window or over the bays, just to give it some architectural punch out here and there. Window frames are black, just to give it a little bit more accent. And what else was there? Sorry. Yeah. And then the Main Street elevation or the Cambridge Street elevations, once again, would have the blue coloring on the bottom and the metal roofing over the bays. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Michael here for a quick rundown of landscape concept plan. Michael?
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, I'll just sort of walk you through some of the main principles behind the landscape. one of the major objectives behind the landscape was we wanted to try obviously to complement the architectural buildings and the layout and to ensure like circulation to the front doors of each of the units is very obvious, that in the sense that there would be a very clear and distinct like address for each unit. We also wanted to provide the ability to have access to the rear of the building in case the particularly unit A, for instance, has it's a rental unit and that they could walk down off of May between the two buildings and access the site from the rear of the site as well. So just to give it the flexibility if they so choose to do that, it also gives them the opportunity to get to the bike storage unit on that side, or if they do own the units, the full thing, they could have a sort of a secondary entrance at the back as well. We wanted to provide well, in terms of the landscape itself, we're referencing and using and making recommendations from the Gary Oak ecosystem plant species and the City of Victoria's approved plant lists. So we're not straying too far from in different plant materials, very local species being promoted throughout. In terms of the landscape features throughout the site, the sidewall and the fence treatment, we're looking at a very contemporary modern treatment, a mix of concrete and wood, as you can see in some of those imageries. In terms of, and then just to give it a bit more sort of a contemporary look. And one of the things on the corner of Cambridge and May you'll see is we've sort of pulled the landscape a little bit further into the corner and away from the two sidewalks that intersect there. And part of the idea is to open up that corner a little bit and give it a little breathing space with some soft landscape versus the current fence that's on the corner. And then in terms of the street trees, you can see along the section in the bottom to help sort of continue to help create that interval of Victorian housing. We've suggested, you know, an Armstrong maple tree. It's a tall, skinny maple tree that will kind of fill in the nice space, and so it'll give the feeling that we almost have like 3 separate buildings versus sort of 2. And I think that's sort of the quick summation.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael.
Cheers.
And on that note, Chair, we are questions, comments. That concludes our presentation. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Keith. You still have 1 minute, 50 seconds, but that's okay.
I thought it was 7:23. I was trying to time it, but I thought it went over.
It's a
We're good. We're good. Thank you.
soft 15 minutes. Thank you. The committee usually asks questions at the end. We let the community ask questions first. So if anybody has any questions, they can.
Others who could watch the signs of the building in the back, in the front.
Keith, you're being asked if there are any drawings of the building at the back and the side, so facing Cambridge and facing Linden.
Oh, okay. The elevations, that would be the, oh, sorry, back and forth. My apologies. We're talking about this south elevation right here. Is that what we're referring to?
Does that face Linden?
Does that face Linden?
Oh, no, sorry, not Linden. My bad. That was saying in the south. I'm sorry, just breaking up there as I can hear you.
It's the east side and the south side.
Yeah, it's the next one. Yeah. It would be this one, and it would be the east of Block B would be this elevation here.
So that's facing Linden?
Yes, we're facing the property that's on Linden. Yeah.
Linden, yeah. And the south side?
The south side is this one. This is the whole block on the south side.
Okay. Does that address your question? Yeah.
You can see my mouse moving around, I hope, right?
Oh, yeah, no, we can, thank you, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Also on the east side, what was the rationale to reduce the setback by 90% to what's about 10 meters and about on the east side?
so the question, Keith, I'm not sure if you heard, was the rationale for reducing the setback on the east side approximately 90%, went from 9 meters to 1 meter? So
About
just
10 meters and about 1 meter.
10 meters to about 1 meter?
Right, so 10 meters. So if we look at this plan here, that red line represents 25% of the, is 25 or 20% my calculation. I got it. It's either 20 or 25% of the lot depth, which is this dimension. So we take this dimension for this lot of 40.24 meters and times that by 25%, and that'll give us that depth there. But because we wanted to get a couple extra units in here, we've reduced this to the minimal 5 feet. The development project development letter says it's down to 3 feet, but that's basically incorporating the bay. The bay that's here, the actual building is 5 feet away from the property line. Like, so it's kind of misrepresented. I'm just going to go back to the elevations here, where you see this. This is the bay that would be protruding that extra 18 inches from the 5 feet. So this whole face here is 5 feet away from the property line, and then this face here is 18 inches closer. So hopefully that answers some of the questions.
So was the rationale to obtain 2 additional units? Essentially?
Honestly, what we did is we were basing everything off of May Street being the frontage, and it was only till late in the process where we found out that Cambridge was actually the slightly larger part of the right of way, hence where all the calculation changes came into play. We were designing it in the matter that you could go 5 feet to an interior side lot line. So, and really, we did need to get these extra 2 units in there to, we felt, as far as a housing project that would provide extra housing for families. So we wanted to get the 2 extra units in.
Yes, another question?
Is it questions or comments?
Either or.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, as you can see along those lines, so the street is set up so that the backyards are, as you say, there, right? So the backyards of the homes beside it also line up to where that backyard set is, right? So Cambridge is the front, and the back is where the big encroachment into the right. And so all the backyards adjacent to this property line up with what's now a side yard, right? And so I think, and I know from your perspective, when you look at the site and how you line it all up, that was the way it, that it looks nice to place them down. But you can see the site has an incredible amount of pressure on that east side. I mean, there's a lot of thought that's gone on into making the side where the street is, all the streets, there's lots of space, even on the south side. So that's actually a side yard to your neighbor, not a backyard connection. A side yard connection was thought on spacing and trees. But on the east side, it's pushed like as if it's a side yard, right? But it's not. It's actually it's an adjacent station of backyards. And so I can see how that orientation to May Street influences the thinking of how it all goes, but I think it has unintended consequences on the area. It's really at site on that side, right? So
Yeah, I understand that fully. I get that. I wonder if I throw a comment out here. What would happen if we saw these 4 units slide tight up to these, basically 12 feet, because these two units have their decks and their side yards this way. If we brought those right tight up in here, and you're gaining basically 12 feet down this side.
I mean, it'd be certainly better. I mean, I think probably other, you know, in terms of pressure from the east side and where my plot sits, probably that would probably help. Certainly.
Okay. Don't take that into consideration.
Yes, question?
And just to add to that, because our backyard lines up exactly with that east line, which is why I was asking about the rationale of cutting it down. You know, we have a couple of main concerns, but the main concerns is related to this, not to do with that really shrink it, but really radical shrink it from, you know, 10 to 1. And then the other concern is that cherry tree is a really gorgeous mature cherry tree. It also lines up with the city of Victoria's tree initiatives, right? Like, we preserve our mature trees, and we have bearing trees, you know, security and climate change considerations. So those are main concerns there, right? That encroachment, but also the cherry tree, which basically which is wrong.
Yeah, like I say, 12 feet might be an improvement, but I don't think that's enough to preserve that tree. That's still going to be half the tree. It's pretty much still that entire space.
Of unit F?
Yeah, everything beyond the red line there is still the cherry tree. If you look at it,
Probably, yeah, that's like the unit half. I think there's a pear tree on the south. I think there's a nice pear tree on the southeast corner too.
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm just having a really hard time hearing people in the background.
Yeah, so one of the, so what we might do is just get you to come up and stand here, because I'm repeating, when I repeat, I don't know if I'm getting all the nuance. So I guess the question was that there are some trees that presumably will be, need to be removed, and there's concern there. The plum tree, which adds to food sustainability and to other environmental benefits. But I think the biggest concern is that the unit F is very close to the backyard of the house on Linden. Is that Linden? It's Linden. Yeah. So if you, just so I understand correctly, if you are suggesting moving those 4 units closer to the duplex, does then that not, I'm playing devil's advocate here, defeat the purpose of having that opening for people who live in those units to access the back of their properties?
Well, exactly. What happens then, you lose the rental suite out of unit C. So we're down to 3 rental units. So that'll be A, B, and F. And yeah, the whole idea was to open it up a little bit so the massing was broken up a bit. But I guess it's a catch-22 that, and I get what the concern is over here. And that's what I'm saying is if we push those over, you're gonna, well, probably saving that cherry tree and whatnot. But you lose this kind of opening corridor that helps the people in the south as well, because there's, you know, that's kind of an opening. Well, it's not kind of, it is an opening that's allowing light and whatnot coming through. If we bring these 4 units tighter together, then it really makes that a solid wall in there, and we lose the 1 rental suite, which is probably a good thing. But we'll take it into consideration and look at it all. I hear what people are saying, so.
Okay, thank you. Another comment?
Mine is more a clarification process, so I'm sorry if I asking this question, but so from what I've heard, this is an information sharing meeting, an opportunity to ask questions, to hear, right, on what the plan is. And then according to the schema, the red is what is allowable within the current bylaws of the city. And then the existing would need to be a variance. There needs to be a variance granted, and then would that go to a variance board? And then the variance is where the decision is made? Is that my understanding? Or have I got that wrong?
It's a
That would be
site-
something for the applicant to clarify. There's a
Okay.
site-specific
Thanks.
zoning, and the setbacks will be baked into that in the zoning process, as opposed to a variance process. But I'll let Keith clarify.
Yeah, because there's setbacks, right? And this is greater than the setbacks and the height, right? So there are a couple of variances, I think, is that right? Yeah. And then, and just my own mind,
Yeah.
application, so then at the variance board, that's where the decision is made whether or not to grant.
Just stop me for a second. It would be a variance.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, okay.
It would be a rezoning,
Full
which is,
reason.
it has more processing.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so
it's
if we-
actually rezoned.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
and as Owen mentioned, it would be, they would be applying for a site-specific zone, which
Right.
is what the Roto did, is what 902 felt they did. It's looking at the site and making, well, 100% changes to what is currently zoned for. And I would say most of what we see come here, like variances, they don't come to us. Development variance permits they go to the city, there's a criteria, you want to get rid of a driveway, you want to put a driveway in, it's a variance to your current zoning. This is a site-specific zone, so it's.
Right. I see, so we'll be at the zoning committee meeting where the decision is made.
Council is the ultimate.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to understand how.
Yeah, and so just to, I will let Keith discuss it in a sec, but also to, this application hasn't, it has a long way to go. So, we're still in the preliminary stages here. And one of the things that's being requested to change is to have council involved as much as they have been in the past, and it's to have staff do the majority of the work and then present it to council, and then there's a public hearing, which is the ultimate opportunity for community to have their say. But at any time, you can write an email to mayor@victoria.ca about any application or any concern in your community or another community, and it will go on record.
Thank you.
So Keith, if you can speak to the, well, there is no variance. So what was the question?
No, I think there.
Yeah, you
Okay.
clarified the process, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
So what about parking? I know it's always biggie, right? And we're trying to get away from car culture and, and having a car more for every house. So I totally appreciate that. Then at the same time, you got a ways to go. I think it's over there. And I just see that there's a car, there's a driveway for each unit. But I'm just thinking if people have a second car, or if there are rental units in all of these, that could be another car or 2 cars, 3 cars per house. There could be more. I mean, you can't tell people how many cars they can have in the house. And so I noticed too, there's no parking. There won't be much parking left on Cambridge or May because of the driveways. So I'm just wondering where are they going to park? Because of course, it's always a thing, right? Like on Cambridge, it already is. Like, people have streets are
Tight
heavy,
corner.
tight corner, like, just wondering about that. I think it's big cars.
Comes up every meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? It's the thing.
No, that is it is an issue throughout, let's call it Greater Victoria. People with garages even that try to put a car in there, it's usually full of storage, and the cars are usually sitting in the driveway. And if you look at a lot of neighborhoods, especially around UVic and so on and so forth, there's so much parking on the street from rental units and stuff like that. It is a systemic problem, and I agree with your comment. But it's something that I don't know how it's addressed. We need more housing, we need more rental, and yet how do we address the additional parking? I agree with what you're saying. I don't know what the real solution is. We provided 1 car per suite here. So 6 units, six parking spots, so.
There was a question about whether underground parking had been investigated.
Yes, it certainly was. The site is really tight to get that in and down and under, just with the grades. By the time you get down and under and loop around, it's just really not, you're not, it's not cost effective for one thing, for the size of development. And it's really a struggle. The only way you could even possibly consider it is you're coming off of Cambridge Street with a large ramp that comes down towards the east. And so it kind of defeats the purpose to the southerly neighbors, because now you've got one big concrete well, let's call it. And I've worked out the grades and stuff, and it's almost impossible to achieve. So yeah, it was explored.
Yes. On this plan, we do use it on Fairfield Gonzales, but most of the frontage on the main is less. So more than half of that is less. Right, okay. So right, it's not really, it's just taking away that parking spot that's on Cambridge. And just from living there, I know it's a very convenient parking spot, but it is one of that, when there's a car parked there, it causes so many issues. So they have a really hard time, you know, it's just street parking on the opposite side. Your residence side, it's hard for them to get around. So in some respects, for some people, this will fix some of that because they don't have. But it's the only spot that gets lost is one that's separate from higher.
Just adding on to that comment, where's the bus stop going? It looks like the driveways.
We already are. Our driveways are already there.
So the bus stop doesn't have to. And how about the fire hydrant?
The fire hydrant they will have to move, but they'll just move it to like not where driveways.
So it's right about house.
No, not necessarily. It may stay on our side.
Yeah, I know, sorry, I just, right, it kind of seems like logical, I could just have visions of and so we just take out that one.
Where we see it now, I don't think there's space for it to go closer to Main. Fire hydrant. But then if it was around the corner, we need meters for a fire hydrant. Parking side on the side. The lines need the developer knows for fire hydrant, much space is blocked off.
So put a limit.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Oh, so the discussion, Keith, is about the fire hydrant on Cambridge
Yes.
Yeah.
that will have to move because of the driveways and might not be able to move around the corner onto May because there has to be some space on either side of the hydrant.
Is it the hydrant or the utility?
Yeah. There are requirements for distances from a fire hydrant. So it's noted on the plans that the fire hydrant is a that needs to be discussed and looked at relocating one way or the other. And then there's also a utility pole right here that needs to be slid over one way or the other as well. So, or we bring service underground.
It's 5 meters.
5 meters either side. So if the fire hydrant would take up 10 meters. I think it would be important to know where that fire hydrant is going. It takes up 10 meters of Main Street parking. 2 or 3 parking spots.
So it sounds like on the plans, it's to be discussed. So
Yeah.
it
Yes.
sounds like it's not, it hasn't been decided at this point, and then there's a utility bill that has to be, so.
All the infrastructure that even the bus stop and whatnot, that still has to be ironed out. So we got the bus stop, utility pole, and fire hydrant, all that kind of stuff. Yep. Still pending.
The questions, yeah.
So, how many, so there's 6 units, right? And then how many rental units proposed within, so like how many total units at max are you looking at? 6 and then 6, 12? 6 and
4 max.
6 and 4. So 10.
Only in the townhouse.
But only, no, only on the units of the townhouse can request, and only if they're the owner at the, like, front end wants.
So that's up to 10, so it's 10, so it'd be between 6 and 10 units then. Right, yeah, and then, and how big are each of the units just on average, right? Like I know it's on the plan, there's 4 of them that are one size and 2 that are the other, well, how many square feet are they each?
Keith, the square footage of the townhouses versus the square footage for the duplex?
Okay, yeah, so basically we're looking at the ground floors, they're around, if you can see here, we're about 450 square feet for the ground floor. We're about 500 for the main floor, so that's 950. And then we are another 500. So we're about 1450 square feet per unit. And they slightly adjust just because of the bays. There's a bay here, there's no bay on these ones. So that's why the little bit of a 8-foot discrepancy in each one of those, not discrepancy, but difference.
And the duplex is similar?
Yep. Yeah, the duplex, all the duplex is these 2 units. Where's my mouse? These,
Yeah.
those 2 units just turned 180 degrees.
So the
90 degrees, yeah, sorry, 90 degrees.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, you said only 4 of the 6 have a potential for a suite
Because of external access. The 2 middle townhouses don't have any way of getting into them without crossing over somebody else.
okay. And so the 4 that can have a suite, it would be 450 square foot.
And they'll be F and C, A and B. Unless these get pushed together, then you lose the rental suite in this unit.
Other questions? We're going to go to the committee. You can ask another question if you think of it. So just put your hand up. Committee members. Oh.
That's pretty high. Look at the telephone pole, that's the size of the house. So the transit on that. It does look pretty high, which means will have an impact just because of the block size of it. So I guess, we've already talked about the parking, but I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts around what is the thinking around the additional cars? Like, is it street parking?
Like every other section. As opposed to you like putting the garage, you can see that garage.
Or to have at least a parking space for each unit, so that it'd be 2 parking, if there's gonna be a suite, they would get a parking place for each upper unit in the suite. Like, I'm just wondering if there's like, thinking around that, and also a height, not rationale for not going down. I know we're saying
So
accessibility,
mostly about accessibility.
but maybe these ramps, things like that. Accessibility, but, okay, so that's my question on that, but it's around the parking and the thought around making sure there's parking for each unit.
There are, I mean, Keith can speak to this, there are rules around like how much of your front yard can be parked. Right, so related to in terms of that. Again, the reality of it is there may be no extra space. Right, it all depends on who purchases, when they purchase, what their preference is, and then from these conversations, maybe it's not something. And then just becomes then somebody wants to do it on their own. Yeah. So it's just, we did this to show that, because you try to make that, we looked at it from every, from an example, we had meetings back in, I think, November, did we? Is it November?
The preliminary?
No, not,
Oh.
we actually put a flyer out to neighbors, at a neighbors meeting, and we took a lot of that commentary. This changed quite significantly. Iteration, and that's what this is about, right? So we just talk to you guys and hear what you have to say and try to, you know, have a meeting. But absolutely, the roof, I think, keeps the top floor, we tried, and we can try to rework it again. Most houses in the neighborhood are like the 2.5 stories are like down and then 2, right? So we tried to do it the other way. These roof lines are lower, the pitch one seems kind of high, but they start at the side walls, is it 6.5 feet?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So basically what I did is that these are full height floors here. And then up here, the top plate is at 6.5 feet. So when you go inside the upper floor, you kind of got this slope ceiling character stuff in there, but that was a reason to keep the roof down at least another 18 inches.
So, and it's something that we can take a look at, yeah, I agree, that's the one piece of it. The height of these buildings, but they are still, the setbacks are fairly close to what they are already. So, you know, where Daryl's house is, it's that height,
Just to give you a perspective. So if you're familiar with the Garden Works project on Oak Avenue, so where Garden Works was, is not going to be a condo commercial lane. And at one point, their neighbors were not in favor of, now I'm wondering, 3 or 4 stories. Let's say they were going to put in 3 stories. So the discussion was whether to have underground parking or not. And so if it had been surface parking, which would have reduced the commercial square footage of some of the opportunities for the ground level, the only way they could have made it work was to actually go up another level. So I think they're at 4, but they're going to go to 5 if they had surface parking. They would keep it at 4 if they could go down underneath. So but they could do it with that lot because it was a commercial lot. So there are ramifications in residential areas of it as well. The one down here on Fairfield, same thing. They won't go under surface parking. The other thing that I found really interesting, this was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3. The building that's being built on Cook Street beside it's a sister building for the apartments that has Long Brothers, you said Long Brothers, and the wet cleaner on the corner of Mears and Cook. And they applied for a variance to reduce the parking from 21 units because there were 21 units in the building. Because they have built buildings in Vancouver, they're finding that the generation that's buying the condos or renting the apartments often don't have cars. They have car shares. And of course, everybody in the neighborhood was upset about that because they said, well, they're just going to park on the street, or they're going to park on my street, or it's going to be a problem. But I think a lot of what we as a community and a society have to start thinking about is reducing the number of cars that we have. It's not in theory, but it's not new. And to have places like have spaces for bikes, have bus routes that are going to get us to where we want to go. And in this area, we are lucky to be able to walk downtown. We have the ability to walk downtown. So I'm impressed that we're not talking about parking 100% here because we have in the past had meetings where it's all about parking. But I think it is a change in how we're moving that has to be looked at as well. So thanks to.
And we also need, if you put a covenant on it, and say you gotta ride your bike, or, well, the reality is, our experience on the street is that, when people have multiple streets, that they end up with potentially a lot of cars, and the impacts are, it impacts the kids on the street, play in the streets, and as we continue to take up more space, we need more cars, which of course to do, we continue to encroach on those spaces that children. But cars are actually part of that, you know, I don't know how many cars my son hit with the basketball. Sorry, everybody, but,
But I think about it, and we have a secondary suite in our house, and let's say we've had 6 tenants, 2 out of the 4 have kids. So it's now we're not a family, it's small, it's like this, it's 450 square foot suite, right? Anyway, there are, you know, you'll find cycles everywhere.
sure.
Yes, question? Oh, I could go on and on.
That's such a topic. Which is where you are. Just to go back to, so we're on LinkedIn, and we're just right on the other side of that cherry tree, so right. And I gotta say, I can fully appreciate the increase in density, like density compared to that is not an issue, but I gotta say we're really shocked. Because the way that this impact that this goes through is like right now, when we look, you know, at our yard, this word slush cherry trees, you know, we've only been there for years, so we're so excited about this new changes and whatever. There's a really nice natural buffer as a result. And so with a really dramatic decrease in terms of that buffer between the fence line, our fence line, and the building that ordinances, and then the increase in the height. I mean, I'm imagining this goes through literally looking at a wall and all of the vegetation being gone. And so I start worrying because I love gardening and I'm kind of getting started with gardening because I really care about as much of the home as possible. And I have long-term plans of what it is in the backyard. And now I'm thinking, is it going to be shade? Like, I'm going to be looking at this window and it's like shade all afternoon. So from a neighbor's perspective, I'm just a little bit.
So one of the things that, Keith, do you have a shadow study done on this development yet?
I'm working through it right now. We've, you know, basically everything up to on the north side, you're gonna have shadow lines, nothing, and probably to the east, to the Linden site property. We're gonna have some shadows, but really everything on the north, the shadows will all be on the street. And nothing affected on the west side because the buildings are further away. But I'm working through those right now and I'll have those as part of the next application process.
So you will see a shadow study that shows different times of the year, different times of the day.
Yep. Yes.
Anybody, Ashley or Owen, Don?
I hate to bring it back to parking, but I do have a parking related question. Because I, for whatever reason, happen to know that when you the Schedule C parking requirements, that if you do have 2 secondary suites on the same lot, it does require another parking stall. So I'm curious how that would be approached to the site-specific zone, if that would be there'd be an exception to that regulation in the site-specific zone. Or if there have been any conversations around that with staff to date.
Yeah, I'm working through staff on that one because if we have to, yeah, it's kind of a, the rental suite, is it going to be there or isn't it going to be there? So yeah, that's still staff discussions that I need to complete and figure out how we ask for a variance on that or how we write it in to the site-specific zone to accommodate. Is it 6 units or theoretically 10 units? So yeah, so that's still pending in the works. But good question.
I have a question about accessibility. So I heard Stephanie say accessibility, which to me means you can get in the main floor because there's no stairs. So is this an opportunity to build an accessible townhouse based on the buyer's request? Or will it be accessible to a degree in terms of size of door frames, how kitchens and bathrooms are laid out? Or is it adaptable versus accessible? Adaptable being you can do it, you can change things after the fact to make it work for you. Accessible would be having something built right from the beginning so that somebody who had accessibility concerns could actually live there.
Yes, good point. Steph, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I can talk to it from an architectural standpoint, and then maybe you can talk about the future of the marketing of it, I guess. But as far as I'm concerned, or we're concerned, we looking at the possibility of getting an elevator in each one of the units. There's a spot that we can accommodate for that, or if we needed to do stair. I don't really like the stair access accessibility chairs. I prefer to do an elevator, a vertical system, and we've got an option where we could do that. Steph, do you want to comment on anything further on that?
No, not really. To your point, John, we've talked a lot about what's the minimum width for door frames, how far between the island and the sit counter. So definitely there has been conversation around that it's accessible as opposed to though adaptability is part of it. So when we first were looking at options, we were looking at the stair lift to ensure that the walls would have the proper infrastructure to be able to accommodate something that. Now we've been looking at various elevator options, and so to ensure that within the plan, if someone so chose at the time of building that an elevator can be accommodated, but also to make sure that there is the ability that should someone want to go that full stairwell out 5 years down the road, that they can also still put in an elevator, and that it was planned so that can be not where they then have to cut holes in boards and weird awkward places, but that it just like pull the stairwell out and redo the elevator. So it's definitely been a big conversation throughout the school plan process, design process.
Yeah, I know with now these are larger multi-unit applications that are in front of the city, 902 Falvey, for example, and they looked at having a percentage accessible. So out of 19 to the started before and some to. And this is something that we've been asking applicants for the past year or so, just because we have a population that's aging, and we have living here or whatever it is. So it's good to hear that there's considerations there.
So sorry, can I just say that my point at the beginning that I wasn't very clear about is because we have, like Daryl and I are of that generation. So my parents, when my parents would come to visit before my mom passed away, it was a 45-minute process for my mom to do it. There were so many stairs for her to get up. This sort of was the birth of this idea of we have build something that's not someone that just like walk in with their bedroom or whatever. So.
Which the benefit of having a lower entry suite opportunity is that as well.
I don't have a lot of depth in terms of time accessibility space, but like wondering about the 3-story townhomes and the concept of accessibility. That's a lot of elevators per, there's one per, and then it's a 3-story townhome. It's interesting to me that accessibility would be a focus of a design like this. So you can see, if you're building a 4-story apartment building, one elevator, like 1 floor to get in, you go up like 1,500 square feet, 1 flat room, or obviously your ranchers that take up the space. But like don't get me wrong, I guess with an elevator you can do it, but it's interesting that you can make these designs work that way. three-story townhomes and a escalator or an elevator, yeah, seems like it's gonna be an expensive option, right? Like elevator or.
They've come a long way, actually, it's quite interesting.
I don't
Because they
know.
did get around to research on
Yeah.
residential elevators.
Yeah, just thinking about I mean, I love the townhouse idea, like, we just need more of them, like, I just think there's such a great place for people to live, have their own outdoor space, their own entrances, and I just really support it, so I really like the townhouse idea, for sure. I just wondered about, I know a lot of them, that I look around the neighborhood, a lot of the houses that are 2.5 stories or more are dug down, right? There's all the dug down to stay within the height, restrictions and just, so I just wonder about, like, obviously, I think you consider that, like, what sort of, or maybe you didn't consider that, like, the idea of like managing the height by, because it's still pretty dense, like, for our neighborhood, just that many homes on one lot. And so just having the height as well as the density is just feels like, wow, it's just gonna be a really big mass, on the corner. And so just wondering if something could help the height be a little less or, without taking away from the amount of density you're offering. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, like the financial viability trajectory schemas that we've done, right? Certainly, if it could go down, and maybe there was one less unit, that would be. I might mention, as Link said, I support the townhouse idea. That's a great idea, is the design. There's a question of that, just scale. I think scale, some parking, right? But it's not that it's not doable, it's just that it's, maybe there's a meeting that's possible with the financial side of things. Clearly, it has to be financially. I think that would certainly, that's imposed on our community.
And also looking at this picture, if you centered those four, it's probably not financially viable, then you come down with it, you alleviate much of the concern on the east, and you alleviate some of the parking issues. I see if there's a car, I guess it's smart.
Yeah.
But where that other car is, it could be where the fire hydrant goes. No, it's just so we have this picture, right? It's going there, or it's going across the street, or it's going somewhere where it isn't right now.
It's going
So
somewhere.
it goes, like, if you went from 2 to go from 2 to 4 families, potentially with a couple of suites, so, you might go to 8, from 2 families to 8 families, but you could still scale it down lower. And bring it in. Anyway, I think there's potential. It just depends, right? Yeah, just for you and your families, right? Do you have a question, comment?
Well, when I look at this, and I just speak with you, when I look at the common ways that this actually exceeds current zoning requirements, I thought, well, what about 2 duplexes, 2.5 story duplexes? I think that would meet every current zoning requirement. And it would at least double the amount of density. Yeah, I think that would be a solution that, well, it may not be financial. The probably satisfy everybody.
Are you hearing this, Keith?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Here's something about density.
Yeah. The discussion is rather than, if I have it correct, and it's different people with different suggestions, but rather than having 6 units, 3 stories high is to reduce the height of the units and go to 4 units so that they can be units that could house suites as well as having 2 stories that aren't as high, I think. And so I think the last point was 2 duplexes versus 4 townhouses and duplex. So just some considerations coming from the neighbors.
Yep, no, I can, we'll take that into consideration.
And everybody agrees they don't know the financials, so that's just a given. If there are no more questions or comments, it's been a really good conversation. It appears that there's been a lot of communication with the neighbors. This is just one part of Fairfield that's experiencing changes like this. As I said, Roto, there's another Fairfield, there's one on Valley. And the important part is to keep talking and to keep trying to share your opinions. So as I said, again, the development tracker, I'm not sure how many more days, but there's still time to make a comment that way. You can always write an email to mayor and council. You can obviously talk to one of the owners and follow the process. The one thing on the development tracker, which I didn't even know this existed before I came to this committee, but there are revisions, and then there are more revisions, and then there are more revisions. And so every 4 to 6 months, there's a letter with the revisions that explains what the revisions are, and then you see plans that have little bubbles on them showing where the changes are, and then what the changes look like with the little bubbles. I mean, there's so much information on the development tracker that the applicants have to submit at every stage. And then there's a suggested timeline. And then it's a public hearing, and we're always like, well, that'll wait a few years. But you just never know. But the better the communication, the better the end result, in my opinion. That's just me. Owen?
One helpful thing on the development tracker is that if you do create an account, you're willing to do that, you can subscribe to certain applications as well, so that's how you ask new things or added to your updates and easier than coming back.
Yeah, and I do apologize if anybody did go to our website and I steered you to the MERS application. I'm sorry, we had 3 or 4 revisions all came through at the same time, and I sort of tried to look at them and fire them out to the committee for any red flags, and I just got the wrong link, and it was on our website wrong. So sorry for that. And thank you for showing up in person. Yep.
So you mentioned a couple of examples that seem to be on sort of the main streets.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, are there any examples of this kind of level of density in the residential areas that we can look at? That are either right now, solar recently.
There's one on what's the one? What's the Arise one on Collinson? McClure, maybe some McClure. There are a couple in Western. McClure, Collinson might be another one. There's those are residential streets.
The development on Richardson is not too dissimilar to this. Vacant lot.
Richardson. And where?
Vacant lot, Richardson. Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah, yeah. So, but Richardson is actually a bit busier. But yes, to answer your question, yes, there are. There are also developments like the one on Foul Bay, which, okay, Foul Bay is a main artery, but it also backs, it also fronts on Swampton and it fronts onto Redfern. And the people in Redfern are not happy at all because, like they use their kids as traffic bombers, right? I mean, kids want to play in the street, and everybody's all up in arms about 19 units, 19 cars. So this is 6 units. That's 19 units. The one down here on Fairfield, again, the people on Beechwood, that's a residential street that's quiet for them. Fairfield isn't as But yes, there are this size happening in Fairfield. Clear Collinson and then, sorry, I just can't think. They go away for a while and then they come back. So that's why we had a real rush for a couple of years. So, yeah.
Well, just you for taking on this process. I think this is not a small thing to do, this is an incredible like process, so, yeah. It's a lot of perseverance, I think, so, yeah.
Keith, do you have any comments you'd like to finish off with?
No, I'd just like to thank you, the chair and committee members, for your comments and for accommodating, once again, the Zoom call. So thank you for that. And I'd like to thank community members for your comments. So I'll be taken into consideration and as I work with the clients and we fine tune this project. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the committee for coming out. So summer evening. So we're here every month. Do come. If you would like to volunteer to be on the committee, we're always looking to have more people. So, and we have an AGM coming up for Fairfield Gonzales Community Association. We're always looking for people on street life committees, finance committees, gardening committees, and get involved in the community if you have time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.